Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Fran Stoddard. Today's event on rural trails is offered jointly by the Orton Family Foundation and the Citizens Institute on Rural Design, or CIRD. It's an initiative of the National Endowment for the Arts. For this webinar, we have three terrific practitioners who will help us understand and provide practical examples of biking and walking trails and how they can infuse creative energy into your community and economic development. Before I introduce them and cover a few logistics, I'm hopeful that Cynthia Nikitin is on the line. She is the program director of CIRD, and she has a few updates. Cynthia, are you there and ready to give us some updates on CIRD?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Terrific. Thanks
Great.
a lot.
Sure. Yeah. Well, welcome everyone. I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, for those of you who may not know, that the CIRD has just selected our 6 awardees for the 2016-2017 Technical Assistance Workshops. And our 6 host communities are Thomasville, Georgia, Salmon, Idaho, Ile de Jean-Charles, Louisiana, Red Lodge, Montana, the Akwesasne Nation in Hogansburg, New York, and Chimacum, Washington. And each of our awardees will receive a $10,000 stipend to support the workshop and follow-up planning sessions. And we're just starting our kickoff meetings and our site visits with them, and we're very excited. And we'll be keeping you apprised of their workshop ideas, goals, outcomes over the coming year. In order to run our fabulous program, we're doing 6 workshops this year instead of the usual 4. We are looking to hire a fabulous intern for the summer starting in May for a period of 4 months. It could go on to help us manage the program, to help with some administrative responsibilities, writing content for the social media accounts, updating resources, doing research, and basically everything involved in helping us to run this program. And if you are interested or you know someone who is, we're looking for people of graduate school. They could also be postgraduate. We have an internship, frequently asked questions on the website, but you can email a bio and a writing sample to David Lazarovsky, and I'll spell that. It's D as in David, Leyzerovsky, DLeyzerovsky at PPS, Peter Sam, PPS.org. And there's also information on the rural-design.org website. So we thought you all would be the best target audience to help us find a really spectacular, very capable, amazing person, passionate about rural communities with really good organizational and communication skills. So with that, I will thank you all. Enjoy the webinar, and I'm turning it back to Fran.
Okay, thank you so much, Cynthia, and congratulations to those towns. Exciting. So for today, joining us today are Amy Kemp, a consultant and coach for organizations working on trails and tourism. She joins us from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Fran.
She is. Just checking that everybody's there. Leah Kemp joins us from Houston, Mississippi. She's an architect and assistant director of the Carl Small Town Center at Mississippi State University. Hi, Leah.
Hello.
All right. And finally, Zach Schmesser is the events director for Bike Maine. Welcome to you, Zach.
Good afternoon.
All right. So we have our fabulous guest speakers. We'll get to them in just a minute. A few just things to make sure everybody is on track with what we're doing today. We have nearly 300 registrants for our webinar. So we have muted all of the participants to get as clean an audio signal as possible. We have just our guests on Audible audio at the moment. We're using the Adobe Connect platform to allow us to share presenters' visuals and to take your questions, so be sure to click on that link to follow along. Many of you have already sent in questions, so thank you for that. Our speakers have reviewed them, and many will be answered possibly during the webinar, but we'll get to them as soon as their presentations are over. There should be an opportunity to also ask questions after the presentations. A Q&A box will pop up for you to write in your questions that come up during the talk. If you have any technical problems, you can dial *0 for phone issues or email Caitlin Davison at Davison, that's CDAVISON, at Orton.org. And I believe that might be on your screen, but that's Davison at Orton.org. So let's get on with the webinar. Amy Kemp is owner of Ford, a trails and tourism consultancy. She is a placemaker and professional coach. Starting out in community development, Amy helped launch the nationally recognized Trail Town programs in 2007 and now consults communities on how they can expand the way they approach trails and tourism. Amy is on the board of American Trails, serving as board secretary, and chair of the Hewlett-Hornbeck Emerging Leaders Scholarship Program. Thank you, Amy. It's great to have you on our program. Go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Fran. It is my pleasure to be here today. I work throughout the United States and Canada helping communities to better connect to their trail systems, and so I'm going to speak rather generally about trails as economic engines before Zach and Leah drill down and talk about their specific programs. So why don't we go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with a story about the town of Confluence, Pennsylvania. It's located along the Great Allegheny Passage, which is a part of a trail system that connects Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. That's about a 335-mile route, and while it connects two major cities, there are a lot of rural communities in between. And Confluence, as you can see, has fewer than 700 people living in town, and yet Trails and Tourism support 14 lodging facilities in town and more on the outskirts. This is all due largely to the Great Allegheny Passage, which I will also refer to as the Gap as I'm speaking. You're looking at a picture of the Parker House, which is one of those lodging facilities. And a few years back, they had the most incredible experience. Over a 6-day period, they had guests in from 5 different countries. They had visitors who were all trail users in from Germany, Austria, Australia, South Africa, and Canada. And, that, I think, is so remarkable for a small town, small business, and they don't do any international marketing. So it speaks, I think, to the high dream for what's possible for trails in rural areas. This isn't the customer they see every day, but it is something that has happened and is possible. And here's what that kind of activity looks like trail-wide. The Gap generates $50 million in direct annual spending, all attributed to trail user spending, and that's up from about $7 million in 2001. So this is a trail that's an economic engine. Let's look at a shorter distance trail that still functions as a destination. This is the 25-mile High Trestle Trail in Iowa, and I had the opportunity to be there last fall, and I talked with the owner of the Snooze Hill Winery, which is about a mile off the trail, and he had the most interesting things to say about his relationship to the trail. I have a video of him on my Cycle Forward Facebook page, but the gist of it is this. He says, the people who come to see this trail, they might drive from an hour away or from the next state. That is my market. We like to refer to ourselves as a secondary tourist attraction to the High Trestle Trail. And so there you have it. We're in a climate in which a winery owner views his business as a second attraction to a trail. So that, again, is a trail that's an economic engine. And this wine, by the way, which they named after the trail, happens to be their #1 seller. Trails on their own contribute to local and regional economies, and that's due to the nature of trail users needing services. It's pretty basic, really. But something really special can happen whenever a program is designed to intentionally connect communities to their trail systems. you may have heard of trail town programs or trail community programs. I was part of the staff that implemented the Trail Town program along the Great Allegheny Passage in 2007. That's the logo in the upper left. And at the time, it was a first-of-its-kind program. It was modeled after Main Street, which most of you are probably familiar with. But programs similar to it are popping up all over the country. These are just a few of them. And I think that's what's so special about this concept of trail towns, is that it can be done anywhere, and it can be adapted to suit local needs and local capacity. So if you're not very familiar, it's probably still really fuzzy, like what the heck is it? I really like this definition by the North Country Trail Association, and I'm going to read it to you. What is a trail town? A trail town is a community through which a trail passes that supports trail users with services, promotes the trail to its residents, and embraces the trail as a resource to be protected and celebrated. Trail towns are built on a relationship between a town, the trail, and its volunteers. So as you can see, it's not, a one-way exchange in which we're pulling visitors in so that we can, benefit from their visitation. It's so much richer than that, and it has a lot to do with communities that value and embrace their trail systems for a whole lot of different reasons, including economic. This slide more or less reinforces that definition. I'm not going to go through every bullet. I know you'll have access to these later, but more or less we're looking at communities located along destination trails that value the trail and want to provide services to trail users and want to welcome people in with a culture of hospitality. Also important, I think, is that communities who are along trails support and collaborate with nearby communities. I've seen a lot of different trail town programs, and the ones that are part of a regional program and work with other communities are the ones that are the strongest. So I have some thoughts around, what you could do to get started in better connecting to your trail system. Physical connections are vitally important. I talked about the town of Confluence. This bridge that you see is the bridge that connects Confluence to the trail, which is on the other side of the river. And the bridge almost didn't open this year. There were some structural issues that need to be addressed. And that bridge is so key that the trail and business advocates rallied to raise the funds to install temporary decking. And so I'd encourage you to think about your physical connections. In the lower right, that's a mural that doubles as signage. That's in the town of Damascus, Virginia, which is along both the Virginia Creeper Rail Trail and the Appalachian Trail. So there are a lot of things you can do to get creative and make it easier for people to get both to the trail and from the trail into your community in a way that, they feel comfortable doing, they feel safe, they know what they're going to find when they get to town. So signage and other connections are very important. I wanted to hit on regional collaboration again. It's really important that you understand what services are available in nearby trail communities. I love this quote from Laura Powell, who's a travel writer. She wrote, "The best restaurant, shop, or hotel in town may not be in your town." And for a lot of us, there's some truth to that. And, if we're looking to service visitors and to help them to enjoy their overall experience, it's important that we have relationships down the trail and we understand where to direct people. Another thing I wanted to touch on is hospitality. I view this as every bit as important as physical connections to trails. And what is that really? It looks like this to me. It's sending them home with cookies and muffins. It's providing these super services that will create lasting memories for people and make all the difference in how they experience your community. It's anticipating the needs of your customer before they even ask. If you own a B&B along an active rail line, earplugs on the nightstand really go a long way. So a few thoughts around what's next in trails and tourism. I think it's important that we begin to rethink trail audiences. Everyone from budget travelers to luxury travelers are using trails these days. For many, it's a vacation or a bucket list experience, and they're spending in such a manner. And so I think that there are a lot of ways we can think about how to go beyond providing the basics just off trail. So really inviting people into our community for quality experiences, for quality product, and for the best in customer service. I took a course on experiential travel in Newfoundland the other week, and I walked away from that realizing that we're not in the business of trails and tourism. We're in the business of providing experiences. And so I think that's what's next for trails and tourism is thinking about how we invite people into our communities and to our businesses and our attractions. And so just a few words to wrap up around why all of this matters. First, I think it matters for profit. Our small business owners all over North America depend upon trails for a portion of their revenue streams. And so, that's, of course, really important for our rural communities. It's important for people. I talk a whole lot about accommodating visitors, but our trails are for all of us. And if we're not engaging the kid who parks his Huffy outside of his front porch stoop, then we're missing out on opportunity to involve our communities in what we're doing. And finally, it's about place. Our places are all special and distinctive, and if we didn't believe that, we wouldn't be on the line today. So I encourage you to allow trails to contribute to place because they will if we let them. So that's all that I have for now, and I am looking forward to the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
And we will move right on to Leah Kemp. She is an architect who serves the Carl Small Town Center as Assistant Director, Managing Projects and Teaching Design. The center co-hosted a 2014 CERD workshop with Mississippi State University to gather ideas from the community of Houston, Mississippi, which sits at one end of a 44-mile-long cycling and pedestrian pathway. The workshop focused on planning for a new pavilion at the trailhead, as well as leading visitors from the trailhead to Houston's downtown and connecting the trail to a nearby parkway. The CERD workshop just won an American Planning Association award for outstanding student project. So congratulations, Leah, and take it away.
Okay, thanks. I have a ton of slides. I'm going to try and go through them as best as possible, so just bear with me on my quick speaking and fast pace. We're going to talk about Houston, Mississippi today, and I'm trying to advance my slide. Let me see. There we go. Okay, so it's located in the northeast part of Mississippi in the blue dot that you see there. The rest of the dots are communities where we work in the rest of the state of Mississippi. We're a community design center, and so we serve communities in a lot of different capacities, as you can see here. And we work with students, faculty, staff, and just a short plug on us. Look us up if you have time. Houston is the southernmost trailhead of the Tanglefoot Trail. It is a rail trails program that opened 2 years ago. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the trail. Here you can see the beautiful countryside of Mississippi and the whistle stops that they've put around the trail. I want to talk briefly about the other trailhead towns, New Albany and Pontotoc, which is midway along the trail. It's important to understand what's going on the rest of the trail before we get to Houston. So New Albany has the benefit of having the trail end in their downtown. And so they've seen a lot of retail development and improvement in their community based on having that trail land right there in Main Street. And they've used that space to program it with lots of different events. Pontotoc is another community along the trail. They've incorporated a bicycle shop, which is in response to the trail, and they've had a lot of great retail development there as well. Houston is a very different story. It's a typical courthouse square community that we see a lot in Mississippi. Beautiful southern town, but the trailhead site on the left in the blue circle is located a quarter mile away from the downtown, which is in the red bubble. The yellow that you see on the left is the actual Tanglefoot Trail, and it dead ends there into basically an empty lot. And you'll see some images here of the site. This is actually what you see at the end of the trail. Nothing, except for the old foundation of the Houston train depot. And so I'm just going to quickly skip through some of these slides. As you approach the Tanglefoot Trail, you really don't know that it's even there except for this tiny sign on top of the bridge. And so this is kind of the terminus of the trail, and without this sign on the trellis there, you wouldn't even know you were in Houston. So originally there was a plan for a pavilion at the end of the trailhead site that really didn't respond to the community's needs. And so we applied for a third workshop proposal. As Fran just mentioned, we won an award for the workshop. It started in February last year, and it was a 3-day workshop. We had a community event that actually got rained out, but the community was really excited about it, and they put signage up around the community. We met with folks for 3 days. They were very engaged. We had a fun photo booth opportunity, so this young woman provided us some input on what she wanted to see and how she loves Houston. We also provided a blackboard so people could come and fill in the blanks in terms of what they wanted to see at the end of the trailhead. We worked with the community and visited the site. We worked with experts. And these are some of our bike and ped and wayfinding experts. I encourage you to jot their names down if you're interested. But they were really helpful in terms of assessing Houston's needs and letting Houston know what was kind of important in this project. And so wayfinding was really critical. You know, the trail, as you saw earlier in the plan, is located a quarter mile from their downtown. So how to make that big connection, wayfinding we figured out was going to be really huge in this project. And so Andrew Baresi taught us about different wayfinding signage systems and where they could be employed. We also looked at bike infrastructure and creative ways to implement that in your community. And these are kind of basic things that a lot of you probably already know about and are familiar with and you've seen around the country. But, you know, this trail is extremely new to this region. And just kind of having a culture in Mississippi, I'm sure many of you know we're known for obesity in our state. And so having a trail come to town is huge. And so just understanding what that means to your community, it's really transformed the whole region. We talked a little bit about becoming bicycle-friendly businesses downtown. And then we talked about assets and opportunities in the community and ways to actually connect what's going on downtown and important things that we could maybe create cycling routes around. We developed a whole list of programmatic elements that we wanted to have happen at the trailhead, and then talked about the connection between Houston and the nearby Natchez Trace, which sees a lot of cyclists, and trying to kind of bring those cyclists off the trail into Houston. And so we looked at different routes, bringing people from the Trace and then zooming into the community and actually making routes along historic markers and different assets of the community, and even bringing up safe routes to schools. They had not really heard of this program before, but just incorporating another way to link their assets. We looked at signage locations from kind of a distant perspective and then zooming in closer to town. And those signage needs are different at the different areas. So as you can see here, we give different examples of what those types of signs look like at different areas of the community. And then we programmed, this is just a sketch of the plan, we proposed a pavilion at the end of the trailhead, a walking path. They have some boulders that are local that they wanted to incorporate. And then really talked a lot about restrooms. And, you know, it seems mundane in some ways, but it's an amenity that's necessary. And as I've shown you before, the other communities had so much going for them, and Houston really didn't have that going for them. And the mayor and local officials have gotten a lot of flack for not providing basic needs for cyclists and visitors at the end of the trailhead. So restrooms became really a priority on the list. We drew this fun pavilion, and they hated it, which is fine, but we eventually came up with a better design that they got on board with. One of the things that I think was really important for the workshop is to develop short-term and long-term next steps. And so we set out and made a calendar with the community and talked about short-term projects that we could do. We even developed a little art contest for the local school children to get engaged, but really just trying to think of kind of getting this project in the community's mind, and so developing inexpensive short-term projects and then creating longer-term projects as well. We have a trailhead here, a picture of the trailhead pavilion. They wanted it to reflect the old train depot or be reminiscent of that. And so this is our rendition of that. We created a construction document set for them and phased it out so that they could start on the first phase this spring. Some lessons learned here. I think it was great for us to have these experts come in, point out assets and eyesores for the community, and really point out things that maybe the community doesn't see themselves. Houston had an issue in terms of thinking big. All they really thought about were restrooms on some level. And so we encouraged them to think big and then think bigger. I think both short-term planning and long-term plans are really necessary, and really expanding your vision is really important. We thought that making a great team was an asset for this project, engaging stakeholders from all sectors of the community, public, private, as well as every demographic that you can think of. You know, having those stakeholders is really important to get community buy-in, and it prevents one entity from making a lot of decisions for the community. I think Houston was fortunate that we had a community design center nearby, but I think some of you might have a university or a community design center in your state that you could reach out to. And a lot of times I keep hearing lately that there are high school students and other students in need of volunteer hours. And so even though they might not live in your community, maybe engaging them from regional or statewide resources could be helpful. Planning events, like I said, short-term and long-term events, bring food. Also, non-traditional meetings seem to work better for us in the rural communities that we work in. So really not having a town hall meeting and expecting the whole community to show up, but think of different opportunities to engage people in the community. And different people like to be engaged in different ways, so maybe catch them right after church or in other ways. Location, location, location. Consider your site and then actually think about expanding your focus. So for us, we thought we were going to focus right there at the end of the trailhead, but really we needed to think much bigger, regionally, in fact, positioning Houston along the trail. So maybe some of those things can be applied to the projects that you're working on. We'll be happy to answer questions in a few minutes. Thanks.
Thank you, Leah. That was terrific. Interesting how restrooms become so important. And what a great project for students. Really, really wonderful. Thank you so much. So we'll finish off our presentation from our guest with Zach Schmesser. He is the events director for Bike Maine, a week-long cycling event hosted by the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. Bike Maine promotes the state of Maine as a bicycling destination and uses cycling as an economic development tool for local communities. Now in its fourth year, Bike Maine's 2016 route aligns with a regional effort to shine light on the unique and little-known natural and cultural assets of Washington County and the Bold Coast Scenic Byway, an initiative recently recognized by the Maine Association of Planners. I believe that byway. Pretty amazing. And I also hear that the September ride draws 400 riders, and it's already sold out for this year. So congratulations to you, Zach, on that. And go ahead with your presentation.
Yeah, thanks. We're really excited to be sold out this early in our year. The first year we've sold out in early spring. As Fran said, Bike Maine it's a 7-day cycling tour offered by the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. And the Bicycle Coalition of Maine's mission is to work to make Maine better for bicycling and walking. And about 6 years ago, members of our board got to travel to Oregon and participate in a ride called Cycle Oregon that's 2,000 cyclists. And that really got our board members thinking about bringing an event similar to Cycle Oregon to Maine. And that's really the concept of Bike Maine was born in Oregon and brought back to Maine by our board members. In 2013, we hosted our first Bike Maine ride with 250 riders. And originally in the planning, the idea was that the ride would sell out in the first 48 hours of being announced, and that wasn't the case. And so it's even more special to sell out in our fourth year. We've learned a lot along the way and built a lot of wonderful community partnerships with the communities that we work with, and really view working with communities as partnerships. Bike Maine is a celebration of Maine's people, places, culture, and food, and we, as an organization, can't possibly know about all the best people, places, culture, or food. And so we really are able to work with each of the communities to highlight their local traditions and customs. We feature locally sourced food from Maine. One of the reasons we offer the event in September, it tends to be the peak harvest where we can get the most local food from our local farmers and producers. We also recognize and know that local food has a strong tie to the economy, and the more local food we're able to provide for our riders and purchase, we can get that back into the local economies, which is a strong focus of the event. The ride also serves as kind of a subversive tool to deliver the goals of the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. So through the ride, with this year 400 cyclists, we're able to have a presence in communities that we might not otherwise have a presence. Maine's a very rural state. Portland, our largest city, is 70,000 people, and so it's very difficult being a rural, large geographic state to really have a presence in all parts of the state. So the ride allows us to have a presence in some of the more rural parts of the state, and with the ride we're able to bring along our education programs, our encouragement programs, our advocacy programs, and we're able to bring along technical assistance around bicycle infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure. So one of the ways we're able to provide those resources of the Bicycle Coalition is through our Community Spokes program. And our Community Spokes program is a network of, we call them spokes, who are given a one-day training, and they're really our local advocates on the ground. Our network now has over 100 spokes, and they're working on various ways to make their towns better places to walk and bike. And they work with their local bike ped committees or work to form a local bike ped committee. And so the towns that we go through as part of Bike Maine receive kind of really heavily focused training around this Community Spokes program, and these are some of the towns that we work with in each community. We're also working with each of the communities to execute the event. We have a staff of about 2.5 that are working on Bike Maine year-round. And so anybody who's been involved in a large event knows that a large event takes a number of volunteers and we're no exception. We have about 60 volunteers who travel with us throughout for the duration of the event during the week. But we also work with each of the local communities who have anywhere between 75 and 100 volunteers who are helping us to plan our visit, from food to handling luggage to lining up entertainment to working with folks that are local to the community to really provide the cultural activities. And so what we're able to do when we go into a community and start to work with a community is provide the communities with a handbook, which really serves as a template for their planning around Bike Maine, but also for future community-wide projects. And so one of my favorite stories is a small town in western Maine, and there were two service organizations that couldn't be further apart and further different and had never had an opportunity to work together. These were people who didn't interact together in their social lives, but in order for them to be successful for Bike Maine's visit, these two groups ended up working together, and the consensus afterwards was, why haven't we worked together sooner, and what's the next event that we can work on together to bring more attention to our community? And so there's a lot of stories that are able to have come out over the last 3 years of stories of that, and we're able to provide that structure for communities to work together. We're able to provide a significant economic impact to the regions that we travel. Bicyclists on average spend more money than the motorist public when they're traveling. They travel much slower. They stop more often, and it's easier for them to stop. So last year, our riders on average reported spending $775 per person during the week. And just of note, we, in the registration fee, which is not included in this impact, they're being fed, so it's 18 meals throughout the week. So these are riders who are going out and, as this picture illustrates, buying cupcakes or coffee or local art or spending it in the local tavern. And one of our methods to ensure that our riders are able to do that is, one, by partnering with the local communities, but second is citing our locations where we're staying right in the hearts of downtown communities. Our riders are obviously, they're riding on a bicycle and may not have access to transportation when they get there. So one of our keys to success is to get them into our downtown communities. We also source as much as possible from Maine. That's one of our very important to us. And so we're working with Maine businesses. We have very Maine sponsors and have very much a commitment to supporting local Maine communities and businesses in anything we do. So just in last year, just in 1 week of our event, we were able to have an economic impact to the region of $448,000 with 350 riders. And in the last 3 years, we've had over $1 million of direct economic impact to the communities. And so I think for us, we're kind of blown away the impact that just 350 cyclists can have in a week, and really recognize the power and the potential of bicycle tourism. It's well documented all over the country, and we believe that Maine, just like all of your communities, is just primed for this. And the fact that we can attract people to Maine for a week, we know we can attract people to Maine beyond just this week. So this year, as Fran alluded to at the beginning, we're going to be in Washington and Hancock counties. We kind of titled the ride "Discover the Bold Coast," and for those of you who have been to this region, you understand why it is the Bold Coast. But the picture that's on that postcard on this slide is very familiar if you've ever been there. And this is not a staged picture. This is nightly. You get sunsets like this, and it's around every turn that you get a view like this. So we're capping this year's ride at 400 riders, and we've sold out. But what we're able to do, and one of the reasons we were very much attracted to this region was the Bold Coast Scenic Byway, which is part of the Maine Scenic Byway program. It's been a multi-year effort to develop and bring people to this region. And so there's been an extensive inventory of the natural, the cultural, historical things to do and see along the route. And on this bottom picture, you can see the route. It starts down in Millbridge. We're going to be starting a little bit further south than that, and this year's route actually takes us across 3 byways, one of them being a national scenic byway. And so it ties very closely a lot of the work around identifying the points of interest to riders on the route has already been done. There are all of these communities that are on the byway have signed on to be a part of the byway project. So what we're partnering to do with the Washington County Council of Governments, who has been working very closely on the Scenic Byway program, is to develop a bicycle route, a sustainable, permanent bicycle route using existing roads. And I guess I should mention our trail system for Bike Maine is a little different than I think what some people might traditionally think of as a trail. We're utilizing existing paved public roads. We typically don't have roads shut down, so our riders are interacting with the motoring public. We're not off-road. We're not on a paved road. And so we're taking advantage of that as we're working in the Bold Coast to develop a route that would include wayfinding signage and maps for bicycle tourists to be able to come back to the region even after Bike Maine is over in 2016. We're working with businesses and getting ready to launch a program next month that's a bicycle tourist-friendly business program, one that would have businesses take a short training to become certified. But basically, it's identifying the basic needs of cyclists. So where can they get access to a pump for their tires? Where can they get access to water? Where can they get access to bathrooms? Where is their Wi-Fi service? Can they bring their bicycle inside? Really basic kind of needs. And what we're really trying to do is make a connection for some of these small business owners that they can take these very small, low-cost steps, and they'll be able to attract cyclists to this region. This is a more remote region, and so the key to this being successful is to have the buy-in from the business community. And so far, it's been tremendous. The number of businesses who have reached out to us who want to be involved in our event some way, and that's really promising for us. So we're going to launch this program next month and work with businesses to become this bicycle friendly. And the dry run will kind of be in September when we launch the ride. They'll have this 400 rider experience, and obviously they're not going to have 400 riders every day, but they're going to get a taste of what it's like and what do riders need in order to be comfortable when they're coming to visit their businesses and stay in their towns.
And maybe return, as someone asked. So we need to get to our Q&A sometime soon. Sorry for my interruption, Zach, but go ahead and finish up.
Yep. Yeah, and so again, this is modeled after very successful programs that have happened in other parts of the country, and is really a trend for people to spend their vacation or their whatever duration on their bicycle. And so we want to make it really accommodating for folks and make Maine a bicycle tourist destination.
Awesome. It sounds really great. I'm ready to go, but it's sold out.
Great.
I'll find another way.
Come join us. Yeah.
Okay. I want to thank Amy, Leah, and Zach for wonderful presentations. And, you know, they're putting these, what are probably half-hour presentations into 10 minutes. So I honor all of you for doing that because there are lots of questions, and we'll see if we can get to a few of them. One that came in quite early was about balancing the need to maintain community character while providing safe, usable facilities for active mode travelers. I think, Zach, you alluded to this some, and Amy, you might have that, you know, big picture. How does a community, is it difficult to maintain community character while you're providing these trails and safe, usable facilities?
Well, I saw that question, and I would love to sit down and know more about that question. but more or less, I think that trail projects typically enhance community character and add to it, and sometimes maybe whenever we're talking about infrastructure in the community, change the nature of our built community just a little bit, but for the better. So that's just my take on it. In general, the kinds of projects that we've talked about today from an infrastructure and community connection perspective, I think they tend to result in the kind of improvements that people intuitively want: murals and public art and bike racks and benches, things that people end up appreciating in the end.
Excellent. And
yeah,
go ahead.
Can I add on to that, Fran?
Yeah, absolutely, Leah.
I know Houston is a very different kind of community situation than a lot of bigger communities, in that, it has a brand new trail that came to town, and they have the opportunity to really kind of rewrite their story and brand. But I know that in working in a lot of rural communities, it's a common problem in a way that a lot of communities don't have a brand or kind of an identity that they can really capitalize on. And so I think kind of rural marketing is something that a lot of communities could benefit from in terms of finding their assets and really communicating those to visitors and just building that brand and kind of image with community members as well.
Okay, thank you.
I would agree with that.
Go ahead, Jack.
No, I was just going to totally agree with that, and that's one of the things sometimes we go into a community and we're looking at it from a different lens than the members of the community, and we almost have to sell the community to them and explain to them why we want to come there and what's special about it. And sometimes it's the natural beauty, sometimes it's the historical, but sometimes it's just overlooked from people that live in the community.
Well, that kind of leads into Patricia had a question about how do you get local officials on board with improvements wanted by the community. I think it's also Patricia that's asking about and even getting funding. So has it been difficult to get local officials on board with doing some of these small, it seems pretty simple improvements?
I can speak to that,
yeah, go
Fran.
Please, Leah.
This is Leah. In Houston, Mississippi, for instance, the mayor and the board were very supportive of the workshop and were really excited about what came out of the workshop. But where we encountered problems was afterwards. Just kind of staying the course and trying to build on that vision and understanding that it's going to take a long time in some cases to kind of build that funding and work toward a bigger goal, instead of, a lot of times the mayor kind of said, this is, and a lot of it was on his plate, and so it was really challenging for one person to be kind of following through with such a huge scope of work. But, at some point he said, I've got this kit of parts, I can have this built next week. And so really understanding that that's not necessarily a good solution. And so I think that's why having a really good group of stakeholders that the community knows that that's who to look to and to depend on and communicate to the elected officials as well as the community, that kind of go-between group that can really help facilitate that buy-in.
Terrific. And I'm sure that impact studies or any studies that quantify the economic benefits of rural trails are going to help any of these people that are interested in this. And we have questions from Vicki in Colorado, Matilda in Oregon, someone from Iowa, all interested in studies that prove the economic impact. Again, Amy, are there studies available? And I think we might even be able to put up links to them.
Sure. Yeah, I think the problem at this point in time is that there are so many studies and there's so much data that it's hard to wade through it all. But there certainly are studies that will demonstrate the economic impact of trails. These are not projections. This is proven economic impact in communities of all sizes. It's not always apples to apples. There are trails of different lengths and different types and different locations, but I think that there's a lot of good information out there, and the links being provided with this webinar should help with that. There are some good sites with good information, and then on top of that, the other thing with getting back to your local officials, you want to have stories and anecdotes to paired with your data, and your small business owners who see the value. If your small business owners understand it, your local officials may come around.
Terrific. And speaking of funding, Patricia did ask about a tourism tax. Is that something that any of you are familiar with, and does that help with funding, or do you get funding in another way?
Well, for Bike Maine, we've been heavily supported by the Maine Office of Tourism since inception, and was critical to getting us off the ground. I think each state is different in terms of how the tourism office is funded. In Maine, it's funded through a bed tax. So you come and stay in a hotel, there's a tax that's charged, and that goes to fund the Office of Tourism. And so we've gotten a number of marketing grants through the Office of Tourism, which have helped us market the event. We've had participants from 35 states and 5 countries who have joined us, and we wouldn't have been able to do that without being able to market the event.
Terrific. But let's move on to someone who's interested in downtown beautification. Maybe, Zach, you covered this because you encourage businesses to beautify and put signs up. Is there should towns think about making their towns more beautiful to have people come through, or how does that connect with rural trails? Leah, I think you also had some thoughts about that, but go ahead, Zach.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think. Oh.
Sorry. Why don't we start with Zach and we'll go to Leah?
Yeah, one of the things that we encourage, as part of our economic impact, it really is, again, a partnership with the communities. We encourage the communities, specifically with bicycle tourists. They can't typically carry more than what they come in with if they're coming in on a bicycle. So things like free shipping or discounts for people that are on a bicycle, or things, even if you have a trail welcoming in our case, Bike Maine riders, but somebody who's using the local trail, I think go a long way to getting somebody in a business. You're more likely to shop at a business that's welcoming you versus a business that doesn't have anything in front of the sign. I think that's true for the beautification as well.
I think
Leah?
Just having those cycle-friendly amenities like bike racks and the bicycle-friendly business sticker in your window, and just understanding, the needs of cyclists and promoting that in your downtown. I think beautification goes a long way in terms of inviting any type of person to your downtown, but especially cyclists. In Houston's case, they didn't really think about the importance of beautifying their downtown in terms of the trail, but it's a really critical connection to kind of either implement a Main Street program or something like that to really boost your economy downtown.
Thank you. There are a number of questions about long-term maintenance costs and how you keep up with either your trails or other things somebody else is concerned about. Of course, everybody will want this, but what about the follow-up and the buy-in? Is there, and maybe we'll go back to Amy as a consultant, what about the long term? People get excited, they get something started. How do you keep this going in the long term?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, I think. And, I don't know if there are many great answers, although, somebody asked about the hotel and tourism taxes. There are places where some of those taxes are rolled back into trail maintenance. There are places where fees are charged for trail use. So yeah, I don't know what the answers are, but I think it's obviously something that's very important that we figure out, because we're talking about destination trails, and for a trail to be a destination, we have to just continue to keep focused on that quality of the experience and of the trail itself.
Okay, and here are two questions that are kind of interesting. One from Washington. Pat asked, how best to engage rootless community with a high immigrant population? I'm not sure if this is related, but I want to address Kimberly's question as well. When she says, I work in a rural conservative community that's not currently welcoming to all identities, what are the best practices for increasing equity and inclusion between trail users and community members so as to support the economic benefits of this concept? So it sounds like they're both asking about, different new kind of people coming through on these trails.
I can address.
Fabulous. Go ahead. Is that Leah?
Yes.
Yes, please.
I saw that question and it really stuck out to me because I thought that just the whole concept of bringing in outside experts was really, really helpful in Houston's case, and I think it helped varying groups of people in the community come together toward a shared goal. But I don't think that just kind of gathering people from different sectors of your community and putting them at a table and hoping things kind of work together toward a common end is going to really work. I think that's what's great about SIR's program for the workshop. You can bring in outside experts and kind of help bring those groups together and have the community listen to those different ideas.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Cynthia had a great question. How can a new friends group who's trying to generate support for a rail-to-trail conversion connect with other trail network friends groups? So this sounds like a social network question, potentially. Any on how to connect some of these groups together, besides perhaps this phone call? Zach, any ideas? Or Amy, do you know of groups working mutually?
Well, something I wanted to mention that I didn't have time to talk about is a multi-state coalition here in Pennsylvania and neighboring states. It's called the Industrial Heartland Trails Coalition, and the idea is to take all of these existing trails that are either, some of them are finished, most of them are not, and to try to connect them to each other so that, we're not just talking about people coming to use one trail, but you can bike from one trail to the other. And suddenly we're talking about 1,400 miles of trails by the time that it's all said and done when it's fully built. And, the power of that coalition, of those people coming together, is that there's a conversation and they're sharing stories and they're working together toward a common goal, even though everyone has their own specific project. And so that's not exactly a friends group, but that's what came to mind. Was just the power of what happens whenever trail people get together and work together.
Thank you so much. I see that we're almost running out of time, so I want to make sure that I give you all that last moment to talk about either how to get people started in creating a trails program, or a last thought that's burning for you that didn't get said. I will mention somebody did ask about child obesity stats again, and I would imagine that might be something that Amy would have, or maybe we can put up some kind of link. I know Leah talked about how these trails were helpful around that issue as well. But I want to give everybody a last shot at giving your final thoughts of advice. So why don't we start with Zach?
Yeah, I think numbers talk, and I think money talks, and so I think anywhere you can capture. Somebody asked about who did the economic impact study. We've been able to, with a few key questions, be able to determine the economic impact of our event. There are a lot of resources at colleges and state universities in doing economic impact studies, and I just encourage people to capture the numbers because that helps tell the story.
Awesome. Thank you. And Leah?
I would just say that, there are a lot of people, a lot of links on this site that you can turn to for advice, but I think a lot of people use the excuse that, if you're in a rural community or your state doesn't have a whole lot of resources, that I think a lot of people kind of give up a little too soon. And I think that there are resources out there. I think getting plugged in with the Project for Public Spaces and Third Network is really great. But if you see people out there who are doing great things, call them. They've gotten funding somehow. And so just kind of broadening your network and asking people that have already done it how they did it, I think is a great way to start.
Okay, thank you, Leah. And Amy?
Okay, somebody asked about the childhood obesity. There's a great site called activelivingresearch.org that has a lot of data on parks and trails. But in terms of final thoughts, to build on what Leah just said, don't give up. Keep going, keep going. I talk about trail towns and physical connections and improved hospitality. These are things that we can do anywhere. They can be done anywhere. And so just keep going. Start small if you need to, or dream big, like Leah said. This is very adaptable. These are adaptable ideas. I'll be talking more on this topic on May 19th. There's a link there. There's a webinar that I'll be a part of. It's called Trails in Town Together, Trail in Town Together, May 19th. So I'll be able to expand a bit more. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Amy, and Cycle Forward for all of your terrific insights. And Leah Kemp, thanks for sharing your stories from Mississippi and your encouragement.
Enjoyed it.
Okay, and Zach Schmesser, thank you so much for helping us see what's possible even without the infrastructure of building a trail.
Yeah, thanks. Hope you all join us in May.
All right. So thanks to all of our guests. You're really a terrific and engaging webinar, and thank you for caring so much about rural America. I think I can hear the applause from coast to coast. Thank you all for participating. I also want to thank SIR, the Citizens Institute on Rural Design, and the Orton Family Foundation, and the folks who run the back room so well and make these sessions possible. There is also a link to that internship job that was described by Cynthia, so I think the link is right there on this page. We hope you also take a moment to fill out the survey on the Adobe Connect page. I think it's in announcements, so we can do a better job next time. A recording of this webinar will be sent around to participants and posted on our website, www.orton.org. We also hope you join us on May 26th when the Orton Family Foundation presents a webinar on Phase 4 of Community Heart and Soul, addressing mobilizing resources and cultivating your community's heart and soul over the long term. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We wish your communities happy trails. That's all for now. See you next time. Bye-bye.